All right, we're live, Team ET. Welcome to our bi-weekly event. Although lately it's been weekly, I apologise for overburdening you if that's the case, but we've been talking a lot about the new program we're releasing at the end of this month, so we wanted to make sure everyone had enough information about it. But this discussion today, I'm with a good friend, Jacnick Loewe. Now, I haven't pronounced that properly, and I apologise in advance, Jacnick, but I'll let you correct that in a moment. But you're sitting all the way over in Norway, I believe, right, at the moment?
That's right. That's right. And I think you did a 9 of 10. I'll give you a
A,
9 of
a
10
9
on the
out of 10.
pronunciation.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's my Australian twang that comes through. It's very, and anyone that listens to me for a long time knows that I'm very monotone. I have a very flat voice base, and it doesn't do well with any sort of tonage at all. I have my wife is Shanghainese, and of course in China they have 4 tones in their language, and as a result, I'm not good at speaking Chinese. So, but it's great to have you on the ET project, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I think we'll have a lot of fun. We're going to bounce around different topics, but of course, you're a fellow coach, as am I, and you have a few extras in your toolkit that I don't have, and one of those is the fact that you were a world champion in the dance arena, and maybe we'll use that as a segue for you to introduce yourself, if you don't mind.
Of course. That seems fair. Yeah. I would pronounce it Jacnick Loewe. So I think you did pretty well. Originally, I'm from Denmark. I live in Norway, just outside of Oslo. And yeah, as you say, my background, I spent sort of all my life in ballroom dancing. From I was a little boy, and up until that's gonna be 9 years ago, where I retired from actively dancing in my professional career with my wife after we won the professional world championships. But that was an amazing journey. That was a lifestyle. Being an athlete, a dancer, traveling the world, up and down a suitcase, living in a suitcase, traveling 40 weekends a year around the world. What a journey, and what a growth experience within myself, definitely.
We could spend the whole hour just talking about this. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit. So you mentioned that your dance partner was your wife. Now that immediately brings up the red flags for me. I'm sure some of our listener base. So you met your wife when you started dancing, I guess?
I met my wife in Ireland in a dancing competition where we were just kids, like 14 and 15 years old. And that was literally a love at first sight. We became childhood sweethearts, and we never looked back.
Wow,
Here we
incredible.
are.
When did you
X
start?
amount of years later.
Fantastic.
Well,
When did you start dancing together?
When my wife turned 18, I guess she moved to Denmark from Bergen. She's the Norwegian alibi here. So she moved to Denmark. I was then 19, and then we started dancing together, and we danced until we retired.
Wow, that's incredible. So what was the span of the dancing career after you got together?
Oh, was that like 8-10 years we danced together? 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so how long were you at the high level in the profession? Like, were you dancing at world-class level for how many years?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of there's an age group called under 21s, and that was kind of where we made our breakthrough together a few years after we started. And from there, of course, when you then go in after that, when you then turn 21, it's pretty natural that you then have a slight stall or plateau, because then when you're out of that age group, then you're in the big boys league. And and then slowly by slowly we advanced from there. And the last 4, 5, 6 years we competed at the top level in the finals and European finals and world finals, and very exciting.
What is your favorite form of ballroom dancing? Like, do you have a favorite song? I don't know enough about it to ask you intelligent questions, but I'm sure you'll fill in the gaps.
I mean, if you mention a guy like Frank Sinatra and a slow foxtrot, then I can definitely feel already something happening on top of the skin. Yeah, I think that category, that corner, has a special place for me.
And what about your wife? Did she have a favorite as well?
I think we were pretty similar right there. We probably had a common love for that slow foxtrot. Let's say, if we would have, we specialized in doing all 10 ballroom dances, so all ballroom dances and all Latin dances, and that was kind of our specialty. So it's a competition form where you compete in all 10 dances.
So what is the routine like in the lead up to a competition? I can imagine there's a huge amount of practice goes in. What about exercise, diet, sleep, apart from the actual ballroom activity?
Apart from the actual ballroom activity, I would say it's very similar to a lot of other high-level sports, because of course it's dieting in the right way, healthy nutrition diet that really gives you energy, exercising, practicing, putting in trainings and practices several times a day, resting, stretching, doing other activities with your body like ballet and other activities that are good for your muscles and strengthens and lengthens them. And then there's a lot of inspiration as well, because dancing is an interesting activity in the sense that it's a sports. It has a sports side to it, right. And then it also has the performance, the art side to it. That's an interesting thing. When I then went over to teaching and coaching in the dancing afterwards, I often used to say that the big difference between having this sprint when you go to cross-country skiing and they sprint the last meters in towards the finish line is like, and you see the drool hanging down and they're spitting and like, right? The big difference is that it can feel like that in the last few dances in a final at the end of the competition. The thing with ballroom dancing is that you're in a tail suit and a long ballroom gown, and you can't really be spitting and drooling. You have to put on a show and a performance and the emotions and the artistic side of it. So it's a very interesting combination.
I'm sure, and I guess you work with a choreographer as well, do you, for part of your performance? Like how do you learn to be more than just dancing? How do you put on the performance?
That's a good question, and we could probably stay there for the whole weekend. But ballroom and Latin American teachers are in general good at choreography. Then you have somebody who's very, very, very good and specialized in it. And the more mature you get in the dancing world, the more able you become yourself to create choreography that assimilates your personality and your personal style and what you want to tell and show in the product that you're putting on the floor.
Right. How do you, if you're coming into a competition, how do you prepare yourself mentally, physically, I can imagine, but from a mental perspective, how do you bring yourself up for that occasion and make sure your partner is also there, which I guess is very important?
I mean, the mental part of it is huge. Visualization and focus is huge. You develop a sort of tunnel vision towards bringing your mind to the stage or the floor, the competition day, so much time in advance. So we always have this philosophy that practice and routines and everyday life should be optimized and kept the same as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if you have a world championship, if you have a small regional competition with 2 couples, or if you have a holiday, like just keep it the same, because repetition is the mother of skills. So the day before big competitions, we would also go and practice. Body has to move. Why? And that here we start doing the resemblances and the parallels we could take into the business world.
Yes.
Because there's often this sense of now something big is coming, a project or something. We have to change what we do. What we do should be so well oiled and systematized that we don't want to change it, because then we start slipping up, then we start making mistakes. So to answer your question, a lot of mental preparing in the sense of visualization, putting ourselves visually there, going through the day, going through the rounds, the different parts of the day, going through the dances mentally, because mentally as a coach also, you know that if we visualize and bring things into the forefront of our mind, our brain has a hard time distinguishing if it has happened or if it's going to happen, right? The visualization of that is so powerful.
So long as you're visualizing the right thing. So how do you get that right picture? It's through the practice, but I'm sure you also have tapes or videos or role models, of course, your coach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That right picture, I think, is also very essential, because then you lead me into a topic that I hold very dearly and near to me, is that goals are not something we should be coming from. Goals are something we move. Goals are not something we move towards. It's something we come from. You see, I had to close my eyes and visualize that to say that right. No, but in the sense that when we come from goals, we are so clear on the end outcome that we want, that we can embody it and bring it to us. So how to establish that picture of how I want to move to the music and interpret in 12 hours when I'm doing that final, is because I become so crystal clear on exactly how I want to move. You see, I start dancing. And how the product that I have decided I want to bring to market or the dance floor is so clear to me, even though I might not be 100% there, but in my mind, I'm 110% there.
Right. And that raises another question. Was there ever a time where you knew mentally you just were tired, you were exhausted, but you were able to make the switch, the transition for that performance? If that's clear. Yeah.
It was just because my face probably revealed that, yes, a gazillion times. I think that almost daily, right, is never. Practice number 2, or practice at 10 p.m. or practice at 5 a.m. Like, there's so many examples I could bring up where the mind first up initially would go like, no, Jacnick, stop doing this to yourself, right? Because the mind wants to protect us, keep us safe, keep us comfortable. But it's always a game to connect to the bigger, why am I doing this? And the more you do that, that's also like training a muscle, constantly going back to why am I doing this? Because it's so important to me. It's so important to me, more important than anything, to reach that final desired vision, outcome, dream. So that just overpowers tiredness, because it brings me in the state of, I want to do this. And the more you do that, the easier that process becomes.
How much did you leverage off the fact that you also have a partner that you need to perform at your best for, to help them be successful, and vice versa, I guess? So as a couple, if we relate this now to leadership and working with a team, I can see the parallels as well, but I can imagine that as a couple, you need to really leverage off each other's strength at that moment.
Yeah. definitely, a dancing relationship in that way is very intense. It and it's very strong. It's a very strong partnership, and of course, with a passion to succeed, with a passion to become the best and fine tune every little detail. And you have two passionate people. Of course, I had a teacher once saying, if you don't argue, you don't want it enough.
Mm.
So of course, there will be friction,
Yes.
but there's also this sense of developing the space for somebody else very near to you that you know inside of you, the core of you, who wants the same, on the same trajectory towards the same goal. So the power of that unanimous understanding of where we're going is so strong. And I think that link to just imagining creating something like that in a team or
Yes.
even in an organization,
Right.
to bring two people is strong, but bringing 5 in a team, or 10 or 25, or you could just go on with such a strong common vision of where we're going, that multiplies the individual potential with infinite.
Yeah. I'm having all of these visual, it's like a video playing in my head at the moment, just thinking about all the correlations here, and we could talk literally for hours about this. But if we now think about how you've taken that learning through your career, ballroom dance, becoming a world champion, the hardship, the elation, the growth that you went through, and how you've now brought that into the business world. I'm really curious about that transition. Was it an easy transition away from doing what you'd been so passionate about for 2/3 of your life, maybe, into a business world?
Yes and no. Yes, it was easy to take my own personal performance and my own personal standards, which as a top athlete, let's just call it that, you develop these habits and structures of how you think and how you hold yourself accountable, and the standards that I set for myself. When I started then in the corporate world, I started in a sales position, and I worked myself up to managing a store. And for me, that was big. The corporate world, being a store manager, having a team, and in the sense that, yes, it was easy for my own performance, and I crushed the sales budget, and the store was immaculate, right? But what I came to understand relatively fast was that this athlete mentality of, I just put my standards here, and anybody who doesn't like this can just find somewhere else to work. Let's say that was maybe not the most successful leadership approach to develop others and empower them and get the best result that I could actually get. Right. Yes, I created good results, and then I set some records, and that was great in myself. But my team was dysfunctional. I had so much potential in the team that I didn't utilize because I didn't know. Then the journey started of me really understanding, like when I had number 6 or 7 resigning from that store because it was too tough. Like my standards were just everybody's standards, and if you didn't meet them, it became unbearable. Because I would just constantly say, do this has to be better, more of that, right, faster, let's do this, not in a negative way, but not seeing the people. So that embarked me on the journey of, hey, I need to understand what did I do in myself and how to translate that to understand how to enable others to achieve their personal high standards. Because then I could suddenly just understand, hey, my role here is not to create results in myself. My role here is to create the biggest possible result through others. So then I had an epiphany and a great painful learning by experience, and through leadership, management, and that was also where I started to really dive into the world of NLP and the world of coaching, which I'm just completely obsessed about, and I think is a never-ending story.
Yes.
The obsession about how to extract the genius of others and make people work in a team and create the most powerful business results and growth through that.
How did you go about that? Like when you had this epiphany, this realization that, hey, I need to actually bring a team into this game, not just play the game by myself and drag them through. How did you go about that in the early stages?
Early stages, before I then started to fill up with theoretical knowledge from the world of coaching and coaching principles and stuff. Early ages, when I just got this is not the right way. I started. It might sound like a cliche, but I started to see the people in my team. So one example, a great lady. I love her to bits. She was in my team, and she was one of these people that she had good sales numbers, but I just knew that she could do more, and I kept pushing her, bringing the KPIs, having talks, one-on-ones. You need to sell more. You need to be. What's your budget? Like really keeping her close to understanding what she needed to do and the average basket size of the store and everything. And when I started to see her, really see her, she had a great charisma, amazing energy. Customers loved her. She just did not relate to the numbers in that sense. That didn't trigger her. She was triggered by the joy and the happiness of customers.
Right.
When they got exactly, I was selling sofas and design furniture at that point. When they got their dream living room because they were shopping from her, they were so happy, and she blossomed like a star. So I started to work with her on increasing customer satisfaction.
Right.
So I changed my approach, and instead of saying you will get a bonus when you achieve your sales budget, I started to say, what do you really want to learn more of? Where do you want to grow when you hit your targets? I so much want more knowledge in that. Let's facilitate you getting more knowledge in that when you hit these few figures. She was a different person, and she was my bestseller. She was my bestseller. That was an example.
I have a colleague, I don't know if you know of him, but he comes out of the UK originally, but Lance Secretan. He will actually be a guest on this live broadcast next. He tells a great story himself about he was in charge of manpower at one stage, and he had a regional manager who was killing the numbers, doing a great job. But every month he would go down and see him, and he would say, "You're killing it, you're doing fantastic, but I just am blind about how you're doing it. I need a monthly report." And the guy would say, yeah, I'll give you the report. He would go back to his city, wherever that was, and no report. Next month would come, he would go back, killing the numbers, doing fantastic job, but I need the report. Yeah, I'll give it to you. So this went on for a period of months, and eventually he realized that he just wasn't approaching this person. He wasn't seeing the person, to your point. And really helping that person to be even more than they were at that time. And he went down one month and said, "You never need to worry about the reports again. I've hired somebody additional who's going to look after the monthly reports. You do what you do best." Right. And I think that's a similar story to what you're talking about. So extremely powerful in itself. What about other people within the team? How did you approach them?
Then you also have people who needs to be helped in understanding what it means to raise standards, not just have standards thrown in their face.
Yep.
But giving them the responsibility to reflect about standards and where they would want them to be, because as soon as you give people the mirror, then they kind of understand that, yeah, if you ask me like that, then I would put it like this. Then I would want things like that. Then I would, what does it mean when people, what would it mean to you when people you're expecting to show up at a certain time, they arrive late and you're standing there waiting. Instead of only approaching, you have to do that. I expect this. This is what I want, right? Showing them the mirror, making them reflect and take upon them ownership of their own self-conduction, you can say.
I'm going to try that with my daughter. My daughter is a beautiful girl, but she doesn't like to pick anything up off the floor. And it doesn't matter how many times, because I'm a stickler for order and having things in their place. And it's a constant ongoing discussion that we have. So I'm going to try that self-reflection. How would you like to see it in the future, type of thing? How does it play out for you? Yeah, so I like that. Yeah.
That's it. And I think you bring up an interesting topic, because so often we can be sitting there. We have to just remember that lightheartedness, that these topics that we could talk about in manpower or in a store, in this little example, or with your daughter, it's the same dynamics. Grown-ups and children, raising a kid, leading a team. I mean, and when we forget that, when we then just put in the report and we just want people to deliver these results on these KPIs and we need to turn up productivity, tell your daughter to turn up productivity and meet the KPIs. I'll see how that turns out.
Yeah,
I think that's the same that happens, right?
It is. Yeah, it's exactly the same.
So that really brought me into, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, so, after you try this initial transition and you try changing your style, what was the response from the team? Did they immediately accept that, wow, this is a different Jacnick to who we know? And did they buy into this change, or were they resistant, reluctant?
I want to say yes, both. But of course it takes a little time, but that's actually a good point there, that I think that it's sometimes when you want to make a radical change in yourself, in your radical change to your leadership, we have to not be so afraid of thinking, then they think of me like this, so I can't change now because they won't believe it. Or the best, most efficient way of changing radically, if you get an epiphany saying, wow, I've been running you guys like a solo show, I want to make a change. Say that. You know what? I've realized that I've done this the complete wrong way around.
Yeah.
I won't say I'm sorry, but you have to understand that I really acknowledge that this is not the right approach. And I want to help you to become better in yourself. This is my vision. I want that we go there together.
Very, very powerful. And it speaks to vulnerability, right? And
yes,
stepping aside from your personal ego and the way that you've been living your life for so long, and having that realization that there are other people in this world that you need to acknowledge and recognize, and making yourself, putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. I think this is a great insight.
Because the only objection you as a manager, a leader would have to that would be ego related. No, I can't say that because then I would lose face. No, I can't say that because then I would lose authority. No, I can't say that because then they will look at me like that. No, we have to strip ourselves away from all of those entitlements and authoritarian perspectives that I'm just a human being, you're a human being. I have a role of leadership where I have to facilitate the results of this group. I've just come to see that I want to do things differently. I think that I can do it better and we can do it better. Yeah. Let's do this together.
So what was next after you made that journey to that point and things started to shift? How did you continue with it?
You can say that relatively shortly after, and if that's a coincidence or not, relatively shortly after I transitioned out of managing the store and then managing the country, in my role took on the responsibility of leading the country as a country manager, and had to find my place in that journey. But thank God that I kind of had this epiphany on the way. So I experienced that in a small team, and then taking the responsibility of all the stores in the country. But of course, it wasn't done overnight, and it was still a journey of struggling with removing. I want to say the ego had a big part of it, because the first years of my leadership journey in leadership, there was an ego from the sports journey, right?
Yes, yeah.
There was an ego, and there was to prove myself and seeing growth in positions also as kind of results and trophies. To take that out of the athlete was a struggle.
Yeah.
But the more I got to, the better I became to lead myself and navigate myself with bigger awareness in the business space. The more I could kind of put my shoulders down and just see that, hey, just remove myself from the equation. I'm just here to be an enabler. Yeah. And the more I did that, the better the result, and the more loyalty and trust we started building between us and me and the managers, and that it becomes a journey that we're on together. Yeah. And I think that transition, I have a great passion for helping others to get faster than I did.
We were just talking before we hit the record button about how long it actually takes to really have a bigger picture perspective around a lot of stuff. I tend to look at leading teams as a very humbling experience, because you learn very quickly how much you just don't know and can't do effectively when you're confronted by so many personalities. And I love that part of the journey, actually, because it gives you the opportunity to be constantly growing yourself. Just when you think you know everything there is to know about working with people and leading teams, somebody comes along and teaches you just how little you really do know. And I really enjoy that part. Yeah. So what are you doing at the moment when it comes to your coaching business? I know you have this great leadership framework that I'd love to dive into in a moment, but what are you doing when it comes to coaching and coaching business leaders?
That's a broad question. I think I do a lot, but it is exactly that, helping leaders and managers, business owners, to really navigate in what I see now. You
can see my light is flicking now, right? Yes.
I can see the disco now, but it's okay. Just brings a good dynamic to it.
Yes.
No, but really helping to navigate what is to finding the clarity in the direction that we should be going, because lack of clarity is often a break, right, to taking the right step. Very often I experience that lack of clarity makes you question, is that the next right step? Is that? Then you fumble around strategically on the spot. Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? What is and then you become stressed and frustrated. Then it goes out over the team. And when you're then not clear, then the performance is bad. Hey, we need to pick up performance. Then the whole shebang goes. So clarity is a lot that we work on. Clarity of direction, of mind, of vision, and maybe a cliche word like confidence. But up through the whole chain, right? Confidence, and where does it come from? Confidence in the marketplace, in a strategic way, but also confidence in the people. How confident am I in the coherence of being here, of being on this journey together, like I talked about, with the strength of the commonality of the vision, and the conviction. How committed are we to, in the team or in myself, to really doing everything I can to push through this journey? Like the tunnel vision, How committed am I to doing everything, to embodying this journey? So this kind of results in the performance increasing. Sometimes we go more strategic, more practical, and it's more about sales, and it's more about conversion, and we look at KPIs and how can we turn this number. But I'm very, very process oriented. So yes, we can look at the results. We want this. This is what I want to improve. Great. Let's reverse engineer that. Where does this come from? Yes. Because this, again, back to the dancing, right? All the time we go to a competition. Let's say I said to you at the top, it felt like we had competitions every weekend, a new place in the world, right? and if one had to be result oriented, like a result fixed, like I want to say most businesses are today, looking at the KPIs and wanting to turn that more, we have to get more revenue, we have to get more conversion, we have to lose completely sight of, but what does it take to get there? Which process should I implement? What should I train more on? How should I go about improving this with a long-term strategy, and what should I do tomorrow to achieve that? So that's what I mean with process oriented. Looking at the processes and the strategies that we do to achieve something in long term. Training, practicing, getting better. And when everybody else is running around trying to fix some result within the next 2 weeks, the trainers, the ones who are in it for the long run, the committed people with clarity, they just last when other people have to throw in the towel.
Yeah.
That was a long answer to your question.
No, it's a perfect answer. I mean, I was thinking, so essentially it's the lead indicators rather than the lag indicators, the things that will enable you to drive that outcome that you're looking for. I used to have a boss that was always talking about the lead indicators need to be the things that will guarantee the result. Not just move you in that or push you in that direction, but guarantee that you're going to get that result. And that really enables you to narrow down the field of what you're going to focus on. And I can see that. So in your framework that you've developed, you have 10 different stages, I guess we could call them. How did you come up with this framework in the first place? Like what's it based on for you?
Well, it started in the beginning of the days when I started to find out, okay, I need to find a system how to do this. It started with me asking the question, so what are the common denominators that will enable somebody to become a good performer? And in that period of time, it was basically in sales, right? How can we get somebody to really become a good performer and sell well? And it started with 3 points, then it became 10. But 3 points, it was like, the first thing we need to understand, to get the power of drive is to know our purpose. So in the organization I was in, I needed to really get clear on what is our why, because our why as a human being is always what drives us. So your drive comes from what makes it so important to establish the empire of the ET project.
Yes.
That's your drive. If I want you to sell well for me in my organization, I need to connect some way my why with your why.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's never going to work.
Absolutely.
But it's at least establishing the purpose. That's one. So it becomes a true felt, purpose-driven action from you. Okay, then I've got your commitment. Then I have to work on your mindset. That was number 3. The mindset, and what does that mean? Well, I cooked it down to 1 point, and that can be actually taken parallel into different contexts. But the 1 point is 100% conversion. That was the mindset I wanted. Okay, so 100% conversion. So in retail, we speak about conversion rate, right? You have a visitor coming in through the door, and you want to convert this visitor into a paying customer.
Yes.
And of course, if you have 100 people coming through the door, you have X amount of people who actually ends up buying something, and that becomes the conversion rate. And the mindset has to be 100% conversion. Because as soon as, and this is a little a thing I always do if I have to speak with people about getting into that mindset, my point being is that if I have something else than 100% conversion in my mind, I am subconsciously allowing a percentage of people to just not buy my product, service, my idea. That if I'm thinking 100% conversion in everything I do, I can go into you and I can be positively certain that I can influence you, help you, and get the outcome that you want. And that could be in a meeting, in a boardroom, in a strategy meeting, in a B2B sale, or in a store on the floor helping a customer. I have to own a mindset of being having the belief that I can help and convert 100% of my visitors. And the last element of that, which I originally created, was energy. And with the headline of every day is showtime. And it's this, back to my dancing career, was this: I wish that everybody in the world could experience the ingrown understanding that you have, that you develop, that when you go to a dancing competition and you put the number on your back, and first round, first dance, first round on that Saturday in the competition, let's say in the Royal Albert Hall, the first round is at 5 o'clock on that Thursday evening. You have your number on your back, and first round is 5 o'clock. It's not 5:07. It's not 5:02. Your dance, when you go on that floor in the Royal Albert Hall, fully packed with audience and a live orchestra, it's now showtime. You put on that energy, or you're out.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you're a previous world champion. If you don't bring your energy for that showtime, for that moment, you're out. So if I sum that up, is knowing your purpose, having the mindset that yes, I can convert everybody, and the energy of it's showtime. If I can get that was my original framework.
Right. And look, it's beautiful. I use a similar analogy. I use the word showtime as well. What I was wondering as you were introducing that is, that's where you want people to get to, and that's very clear. Of course, most people that you work with are not going to be at that point, right? That's why they're with you. That's why they're working with you. So then you have to start working with them to understand their purpose, to help them align their purpose with company purpose or whatever it might be. You have to help them to establish this mindset. And then the energy, I imagine, is an easier thing for people to realize, but maybe not bring to the fore. Yeah. So how do you go about bringing those three elements forward for the individual? I guess everyone's different, but is there a specific approach?
That's a good question. Specific approach, a specific system, but different approaches. Because every company is different, every structure is different, and so on. But I always say that if it's not planned, it's not going to happen. So this, what we're talking about, if we talk about the three elements there, this is what we want to achieve. But then I will ask you, show me the framework of how you work during a week. If in your team, doesn't matter how you work, or if you're on a phone or in a call center or in an office or in a store, doesn't matter. Show me the framework of how your days are constructed, like I would do in my own when I was an active dancer.
Yes.
How do I construct my days? So I take the lead number that I really want. This is what I want, and I have to be able to see this in the construction of my days and my weeks and my month. So if we take the first one with the purpose, I have to construct my days where I have drops of this inside my everyday life. So how can I take company X and their vision, their purpose. Why are we doing this? How can I drop this in with every team member, every employee in the organization, big or small? If you're a 2-people army or if you're 1,000 people, everyone needs to have drops of this in my everyday life. That could be an introduction. When you get into work every day, you start doing this. It can be posters on the wall. It can be reminders on an app. Like, the approach can be very different, but I need to understand that if I don't do it every day, if I don't get reminded and put things in every day, it's going to disappear. It's never going to happen. Same with if I don't stretch my legs every day, I'm going to go stiff and I can't do my work. If I don't relax, or if I don't get, just taking parallels into the dancing world, right? As if you don't do stuff, if you don't manage it, if you don't put it into attention, it's gonna go away. The law of use, whatever you use goes away. Whatever you don't use goes away.
I'm smiling to myself because I can imagine a lot of leaders are sitting there thinking, Jacnick, that's so obvious, but the reality is very few people would absolutely be that committed and create a routine that almost becomes habitual, which is essentially what you're saying, right? So you have to get it to a point where whatever it is that you've identified that is essential becomes a habitual practice day on day in your routine.
Exactly, because it's like sometimes you have the bigger the organization becomes, let's say, it doesn't need to be that always, but you get this feeling that it has to be complicated, that it has to be big, expensive, complicated. And if you say to somebody who's in that mindset, but it's actually not, it's pretty simple. We just need to find out what you want, and we bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to go, and we put it in a framework, in an everyday, in a plan, a routine description. It's like, nah, it has to be more complicated. We'll go with somebody with big, complicated ideas and frameworks, and maybe we, we have in the dancing world, we have what we call the $1 million walk, because in rumba, in the dance rumba, the most basic step is the rumba walk, the way you walk in the dance rumba, and that sort of is a foundation of everything you need to know, to learn, need to know as a dancer in the Latin American dancing. It springs from the way you move and the techniques and the mechanics and the emotion, everything in that single walk. So every dancer in the whole world probably spends millions of dollars on teachers and mentors and understanding the core principles of the rumba walk, the $1 million walk. It's not necessarily to going to the great America and getting the most fancy choreography. Yeah, you can do that, but that doesn't change anything.
Unless you have that foundational piece in place, the rest of it is inconsequential, I guess. So there's 3. Now you've expanded it to 10 in total. So what happened to make that elaboration? How did you come about with the extra steps?
When I started to get really obsessed with the world of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, for the ones who don't know that it's a coaching therapeutic framework of really modeling excellence, right? That's where NLP came from, to understand what it means, the strategies, the mental strategies that it takes for somebody to be successful. And understanding the framework of this and how we work as human beings and what controls us or what influences how we operate and conduct ourselves. Then this framework expanded. So you can say that when I start, and let's say the first 5 categories actually is mindset, our purpose, our vision, our identity, and our values and beliefs. On the top of this pyramid that controls and influences how I conduct myself in the world, these are the top 5 pillars that makes me do what I do. that makes me think what I think, that makes me behave, and actually makes me able to learn. So if I go into an organization and these pillars are untouched, the organization is actually only using my current potential without getting me on board, without getting, well, then it's left to coincidence. Some employees might just, okay, I have a vision that sort of correlates with that, or maybe I have a vision of being the manager in that department, so that brings a little bit more drive to me, but it's very coincidental. Yeah. So working with these core top 5 pillars is so powerful to begin with when you start working and enabling your people.
Yeah, fantastic. So the neurological levels, which these ones sit at, let's say, the top half of that pyramid, are very powerful. I use that myself quite regularly with different clients, and work top down or bottom up. So it can work both ways depending on the need and the individual or the team. So
yes,
yeah, very good. So from vision, identity would sit there as well, I guess, to some extent. Yeah.
Of course, because how many companies are there that can tick off the box that their identity is deeply worked through and established? I think we will have a very little handful that can tick off that box. And I think that sometimes when I speak about this, the executives or stakeholders can experience this, in my experience, can experience this as a little bit, it's soft, it's fluffy. I can't see, I don't understand, I don't buy into, I want to see some hard numbers and I want to, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's all great. But the people who are going to deliver the results are just people like yourself.
Yeah.
And as a human being, we are driven by who we believe we are in ourselves, but also as a pack. So when people invest their life in working for a company, there will be an overlap of identity. And if I'm not quite clear who that is, who are we? What do we actually stand for, like to the core? And if I'm not bought into that, I'm just a superficial pawn on the chessboard.
Yes. Yeah. You become a number and you become easy to remove at the end of the day, right? It's
and if you're easy to remove, where's the maximum of your engagement? Where's the maximum of you bringing everything you can to move the ship in the direction that we want? So for me, there's just so much untapped potential when we're not working with that.
There's an interesting study going around at the moment talking about boomerang employees. I don't know if you've heard that terminology in Europe, but essentially what it's talking about is we've been through the Great Resignation, the talent reshuffle, and all of the phrases that have come up over the pandemic. And now what we're seeing, or what people are seeing and reporting, is this phrase of boomerang employees. And these are people that left the organization that are later coming back to the organization. And when they're asked why they would come back, essentially it was because they could identify more with the company they left than with the company they were at. So if you want to put the word brand there, I think it's broader than brand. It's probably more in the area of culture. There's probably a lot of buzzwords you could use, but yeah, so identity is very, very critical. And I'm with you. I don't think enough people give it sufficient heedance, and they probably pay the consequence for it. So what about sorry, please.
No, but you can also take this down a level or two into the department or the role that the individual is having in the organization. Let's just say it's a manager of some sorts. I remember very, very specifically a conversation I had with a manager many years ago. that made me sound old. That wasn't on purpose. But this conversation, I was like, and I couldn't identify why this store wasn't doing well. And we had many conversations, and I visited the store, and things seemed to be okay. But the results were bad. And then in a conversation, we ended up talking about, but tell me who you really believe you are here. What, like, tell me what you do, what's your role. I was in my mind, I was expecting some sort of captain, I'm the captain metaphor, right? And it just exploded my mind when this manager said, yeah, I just see myself as one of the gang, and I've been positioned where I have to be responsible of more things than them. So I have to stay here later. I have to do extra things, but I'm not satisfied with the salary I get for that. And it just all the challenges just started to fall off from that. The identity of being one of the gang, well, some people can say there's no problem in a manager or a leader being one of the gang, but the identity of just being an employee with a little bit more responsibility, not really getting enough pay for that. And then you move to another place where another leader really embodies being the captain, taking responsibility, taking care of the people in their care. That identity shift, and results started to come.
Yeah.
Right? It's insane.
It's incredible. I'm conscious of the time, Jacnick. So I'd love to get you just to round out the 10 steps so that people get the full picture, but we might have to do it a little bit quicker than what we have been. It's been a great conversation. Don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed it immensely, but unfortunately we do have to finish shortly. So the 10 steps, do you want to?
Yeah. So we established like the 5 top pillars that's really important, that drives our behavior and all this. Then the deep listening point from the leader side. See that she's not triggered by the KPI, but see that she's triggered of growth and relations. That I can sum it up like that. Really see, really listen. I'm not saying that we have to servant leadership is sometimes, in my perspective, misunderstood in the sense of I just have to remove all the barriers away from you and do everything you want. No, it's not that. But really listen to where the challenges are, and really listen what engages you and where I have to support you in growth. So that deep listening is essential. I think that's a lack many places. And then helping and facilitating focus on what really moves the needle, because I spoke earlier about that I help with gaining clarity both on the top but also in the everyday life. What do we focus on? And that also can be taken back to the world of sports, in that in periods of time we focus on one thing that really moves, the one thing, the book, the one thing, or the British rowing team, and their focus, right? Will it make the boat go faster? And if the question is yes, that's what we do. So helping people to really, really focus. Goals and structures then brings down exactly what we said, that when you know where you're going, you can easily break it down. And it is easy. It's smart goals. It is easy, but it's just taking it into reality and start living through it. And like I said, the structure of my everyday life shouldn't change, even though a big event is coming. Repetition is the mother of skills. Energy, everyday showtime, and then understanding how important it is to make sure that every single person in your organization experiences that they're truly being taken care of, in the sense that they can see themselves growing. I'm on a path of growth. Because if you put somebody in the corner saying, do this job, they're going to do it for X amount of time, and then they're going to feel like something's missing. Maybe I should try another job. So people never leave organizations. They leave the leaders not being able to facilitate or enable them.
Yeah, and I find that's largely a case of creativity on the leader's part. Often the leader says, how can I promote you? The structure of our organization doesn't enable me to do that. I think that's a cop-out. That's a lack of creativity, and you can always find ways to help others grow, whether it's something simple like asking them to work on a new project and take the lead, whether it's running a weekly meeting. It doesn't have to be something that's going to set them off on a tangent for the next 12 months. Growth happens in small iterations just as much as big ones. So I really enjoy this whole enabling leadership framework that you've developed. And as I said before we came on screen, I've actually borrowed it for one of my programs. So thank you for that. So we're coming to the end. Where can people really that are interested from what they've heard today, where can people connect with you? How do they get to find out what you're doing?
On my Instagram, on my Facebook, it's the easy name at Jacnick Loewe, JANICKLOEWE. You can maybe put it somewhere. Or my website, jacnickloewe.com.
It's almost like the famous Louvre in Paris, right? It's almost
Exactly.
with a very different spelling, but the pronunciation is very similar. Yeah. So, all right, great. So, anyone, I will have some comments anyway when we finish this recording. So we'll put those links in the comments so people can find you. Jacnick, it's been a great conversation. At the end of this. Wow, what are we in today? 22nd today. Gosh, so I think end of this week, we close off our registrations for a big program, 10-week program we're launching. So it's a busy time for me as well, and it's great catching up. We don't get the opportunity enough, and I'd really encourage people to check out the good stuff you're doing and connect with you, and I'm sure they won't be disappointed. I've loved listening to the journey you've been on. I heard many things that you shared today that I hadn't heard from you before, so it was great hearing that. So look, thanks very much for coming on the ET Project Live. It's been a real enjoyable event. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was a true pleasure. Thank you, and thanks for everything you are doing. It's really amazing. I really enjoy.
Thank you.